If you're somewhat into photography, you may already have come across this debate of full frame versus APS-C. And generally speaking, most people draw the conclusion that, well, full frame is better than APS-C. APS-C is smaller than full frame. But in today's video, I want to show you that neither is full frame necessarily better than APS-C, nor is APS-C necessarily smaller than full frame. And make sure to stick, because I'm going to show you the real downsides of shooting on APS-C. So I would say, let's get started. Alright, let's start with image quality. And generally speaking, there is two aspects that people love to mention as advantages of full frame cameras, which is resolution and dynamic range. But honestly, both barely matter in real world use. Yes, full frame goes up to 61 megapixels, while APS-C only to 40 megapixels, but both give you more than enough detail with good, well-resolving lenses. And dynamic range? Well, full frame should be better here. I actually underexposed both systems by an extreme 4 stops and recovered them. But honestly, in terms of noise levels, I found them to look basically the same. I was actually quite impressed by the APS-C. I assumed that if I push them so much, I should be able to see the difference, but not really. So the real difference, for me at least, comes down to low light performance. So let's get into that. Usually in low light you shoot at higher ISOs, and at the same ISO, let's say for instance ISO 3200, APS-C will usually look noisier while the full frame seems a bit cleaner. Why is that? Well, because APS-C is effectively a crop of the full frame image. So APS-C is nothing but zooming in, which magnifies the noise more and makes it more visible. So easy win for full frame, right? Well, not necessarily, because there is one really important aspect that most people, just bluntly comparing sensor sizes, totally omit. And this is the impact the lens makes on your image. Because the lens itself matters actually as much, if not more, than the sensor itself. So let's dive into that. In fact, with APS-C, you can use a brighter lens with a brighter maximum aperture. So instead of full frame at ISO 3200 f2, you could shoot APS-C at ISO 1600 f1.4. And now compare those images and suddenly the differences are virtually gone. So in equivalent settings, you can compensate for the smaller sensor by throwing more light at it for the image quality to match. But, and this is important, this equivalence match only works to a specific degree, and we'll get into that again a little bit later in the video. The next difference of APS-C versus full frame is background separation, so let's get into that next. Let's say for instance that both our APS-C and full frame cameras use a 50mm lens. Same aperture, same position, the depth of field is the same, but as you can obviously see, the APS-C image is tighter. So to match the framing, you have basically two options. Either you step back, which however changes the perspective and alters the way the image looks relative to the full frame, or alternatively, you can use a wider lens to make the frame wider and match the full frame image. And now we finally have the field of view exactly matching, and we can actually see that the image looks the same, but on full frame at the same aperture, you have slightly more background blur. But here again, similarly, we completely ignore equivalence. We completely ignore the lens. And in fact, here again, we could technically just open up the aperture on APS-C and get slightly blurrier backgrounds, effectively matching the image on full frame. So once again, at the same settings, full frame wins, I guess. But if you actually take into account equivalence and you adjust the settings on your APS-C camera, you can actually achieve exactly the same look. And now you may justifiably ask, so if I can always just adjust my settings and my lens to basically just match the full frame image, why do I even invest in a full frame camera in the first place? Or what are the real downsides of APS-C cameras? And the first downside of APS-C cameras is what I would call the aperture ceiling. And it basically refers to, at some point, your lens not being able to open up wide enough to actually recreate the look that you have on your full frame camera. So for example, on full frame, you may have an f1.4 lens a very common aperture on full frame cameras, and on APS-C, your equivalent would have to be brighter at roughly f1.0. And now try to find an f1.0 lens on the market and usually you will notice three things. First of all, very few of these actually exist. Additionally, many of them are actually manual focus only, and often optical quality suffers, and I'm certainly not an optical engineer to tell you why the optical quality suffers, but I can tell you or retrieve from this that it's probably very hard to actually create f1.0 lenses that are optically as good as f1.4 lenses or f2 or whatever. Which means that at these extreme ends of the f range, full frame basically wins. But there is another ironic downside of APS-C cameras, which is that again related to these bright apertures, ironically, the APS-C equivalent lens is actually bigger than the equivalent counterpart on full frame. So to match full frame, APS-C lenses often need to be faster. So on full frame, you may for instance need an aperture of f1.8, while on APS-C you need to double the amount of light to compensate for the sensor and open the aperture to f1.2 for instance. And generally speaking, faster lenses also mean bigger lenses. So what happens is that you sometimes end up with an APS-C lens that are either the same size, this Sony 85mm f1.8 versus this Fuji 56mm f1.2 for instance, or in some cases, APS-C lenses are even bigger than their full frame equivalents. For example, the Viltrox APS-C 27mm f1.2 weighs around 560 grams, while Viltrox's upcoming full frame 35mm f1.8 Evo, which is supposed to be fantastic, comes in at only 365 grams. Of course, these lenses are not totally identical in build quality, but considering they served a very similar purpose in terms of field of view and look, the size difference is striking. The APS-C lens ends up being significantly larger, despite it being the smaller censored system. So what have we learned today? So in today's video, I wanted to teach you three separate things. First of all, that APS-C and full frame actually have equivalents so that you can literally achieve identical results across different sensor sizes. The second thing that we've learned is that full frame pulls ahead once there is no equivalence anymore on APS-C on these super bright apertures like f1.2 or f1.0. And finally and ironically, at these bright maximum apertures, you actually often have bigger lenses on APS-C compared to the full frame counterparts. And finally, also one really important thing to bear in mind, which is that literally nobody, even the professionals, even myself, I couldn't tell you what camera and what lens you used to take a specific photo. If you, for instance, consider these photos here, tell me which ones of them are taken on APS-C. And well, they are actually all taken on APS-C cameras. So for most purposes, the difference is really negligible. So I hope I could give you a little bit more of a refreshing experience, a new approach to APS-C versus full frame that is actually reflected in practical use than just comparing spec sheets of dynamic range and then arguing that full frame is better and APS-C is smaller. And if you're now still interested why I switched from APS-C to full frame and then back to APS-C, then I highly recommend you check out this video up here. And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today and I hopefully see you on my channel again soon. Bye.